Hey there, hope you're doing well. It's been a while actually since I've done a video outside, I think. At least not when the weather's been like close to 60 degrees. It's absolutely beautiful today. Yeah, so I figured I'll just, rather than do the video from in my office room, I'll just step outside, catch a bit of a walk, and just talk about something I've been working on recently. So hopefully you can hear me all right. I didn't bring my mic, but hopefully it's not too bad. You might hear some wind. And before I get started, if you haven't checked us out, go to snowpal.com, download the app from the app and Play Store, and just get yourself organized and enjoy all the features that we offer on our project management platform. Okay, without further ado, let me go to the content of this video. In this one, I just want to just talk a little bit about the work I've been doing the last few days. And again, I've shared this before. Every week at Snowpal is actually very different from the weeks before or the weeks to come. And even during the course of that week, we end up working on a variety of different things across stacks. So this particular week, or the last few days, I've been spending time working on implementing APIs, a bunch of endpoints. The UI work for this really cool feature, I'm pretty certain you're going to love this, has been complete for a little bit actually. I intended to work on these endpoints a month, maybe 2 months ago, because we completed the UI part of the work, for the most part at least. But again, we had a lot of other things. We've been working on a bunch of other things, so I couldn't get to working on these actual API endpoints. So now I figured I'll circle back because we want to get this out the door hopefully in the next maybe 4 to 6 weeks. It's a pretty big feature, and it comes with a lot of other enhancements as well. Anyway, so to get to the actual problem that I want to talk about here, the UI work was done, and here's an example of one of the many ways you can actually collaborate between the UI and the API teams can actually collaborate, right? We ourselves use a variety of examples and scenarios. This is just one of them, and hopefully it resonates with you and it helps you. So in this example, and it's a true real life example, right? The UI work has been complete, right? Pretty much, other than the integration part. The UI is connecting to API like blueprint, stub.apis and responses. So that's how the UI team worked on it. Now I'm getting to, after they do that, our process is that they would create a specification. We have a large number of endpoints in production already. I've mentioned that before. This adds about 75 endpoints, I think, to our existing list. And not all 75 of them are actually unique. I would say about 30% of them are unique. And what I mean by that is 30 of those endpoints almost have nothing to do with each other in terms of when it comes to implementation. But the other 70%, they are variations of the same type of endpoints, right? So because we have keys, blocks, pods, and block pods, we have 3 levels of hierarchy, and in some cases 2, but we support up to 3 levels. If you haven't checked this out, just make sure you create pods under blocks and you'll see what I mean. So when we implement a feature, sometimes it's specific to a particular type of resource, whether it's a key, block, or a pod, but other times it is common across all these resources. In this case it is. So there's like 75 endpoints with 30% of them, give or take, that are unique. So how do you go about solving this problem, right? So the approach we've taken actually here in this particular scenario, and this changes depending on the feature, depending on our milestones, deliverables, yada yada yada. But for now, so the UI teams completed their work pretty much. They create this specification, update the spec to add these endpoints. They tell me, or the API team, and in this case they are restful endpoints, in other cases it could be graph endpoints, right? So they tell us what we need to do, what those endpoints are, what the actual path is, what query string params or request body we might need to pass for post or patch requests, whether it's patch or put, and what are the variations of the deletes we support, the whole 9 yards essentially, right? So they publish those endpoints via the specification, and that's exactly the same, and those are the same endpoints that they stub out on API, right? That's what they're using. And then the specification also includes, this is like, nothing different, right? It's like publishing a Postman workspace, but I'm not a huge fan of Postman. So I use Insomnia, which works very well for Graph and REST APIs. And I've been using them since they actually went live, I think, or it's been like 3 years. I've not done all of my graph work has been using Insomnia, and I actually fell in love with the tool. The client, because unlike Postman, it doesn't open like a gazillion tabs, so it's a whole lot easier to use. And I personally prefer it. It's just a personal preference. Anyway, so it's got its pros and cons as well, because they don't support open API, so we have to go through some hoops to do the conversions. Anyways, that's besides the point. So the UI team publishes the spec, and then they give it to the API team. Now that's the handoff, right? And any documentation that they include it as part of the specification. But given that we've implemented a large number of endpoints, we kind of know what to expect, right? It's just the endpoints are different, the expectations are different, but the documentation, we don't spend too much time on it. It's in the spec, or we discuss it over a phone call, and we know we are good to go. And we kind of carry it over to a GitHub issue and track it on a GitHub project. So now that they've given the endpoints, what did I do the last couple of days, right? So first is we have a structure in those endpoints. So those 75 endpoints are broken down into different directories, subdirectories. It tells us what to do, and you can almost rely on it for the sequence of implementation, but not entirely so. Here's why, right? Let's say I'm implementing a post for a key for that particular endpoint, for that feature. I would have to do the same thing for a block, a pod, and a block pod. But then there's other endpoints, right? The other post endpoints, other patch, put, and patch pretty much, delete, and get endpoints. Now, you could either do it resource by resource, or you could do it by the HTTP verb. That's your choice, right? And you figure out what might make you productive in that scenario. And these are very important, because these are decisions that I sometimes all the time don't see API developers give enough thought to. So what happens is we may just start implementing it, and then they start reporting statuses. But the question is, are they taking the most optimal approach from a productivity standpoint? And it depends, right? There's no single right answer. Whether you want to implement all post requests first before you go to patch, or whether you want to do it by the resource, is entirely up to you. That particular problem, the complexity of the problem, your deliverables, and it's a combination of factors, right? Unfortunately, it's not a silver bullet, or there's not a single straightforward answer. But regardless, you have to have a hunch as to how you want to go about it. In this case, I actually did a combination of the two. I first worked on the key endpoints, right? So it was across HTTP verbs, but for that resource. But after I did that, I knew for certain that when you go to implement the same type of endpoints for blocks where there are similarities, you're going to have to do a bit of refactoring, because the code is going to have to be similar. Because initially when I created all the files, the scaffold and the skeleton of everything that relates to this feature, I typically stub out all the files, right? So in this case, I had to create like 35, 40 different files, models, the routes, the services, everything that you typically need to implement an API service. But when I did that, I knew without any doubt that when I would go to implementing blocks, I would most certainly have to do the refactor. So I asked myself, not literally, but implicitly, whether I wanted to be able to do that. Because if I did not want to do that, then I'll have to implement all the post endpoints at the same time for all the resources for that specific business problem. In that case, you would write it sort of correctly the first time and not have to refactor. But in this case, I made the conscious decision to actually get the key part done. The key part, like, no pun intended, but the key part of the key resource in our product done. Because, I figured that if I implemented the key in entirety, that would take care of about 60 to 70% of the uniqueness of those unique endpoints, which were 30% to begin with, right? So just to get back to the math, because this is very important if you're following this closely. If you have like 100 endpoints, or in this case it was 75 endpoints actually, about, I said 30%, right? That's like about 25, let's say 25. Well,